addition, deletion, or revision in the scope of work. So here we have a change order example I pulled up from the internet. So here we're upgrading to 5.25 inch cove moldings. So right here we see we agree hereby to make a change specified above at this price. So we're changing it in $100. So it went from previous contract amount 600. So now revised contract total is 700. Now this change order doesn't really tell us why. It doesn't tell us why this is happening. What's the reason behind it? In most cases, your change order is going to say, why are we changing something from the original contract documents, contract specs, and the scope of work, like what has really changed. Here, you're just saying that we are changing it. So that's it, plain and simple. So let's look at page, better examples on page 393 of your textbook. So here we have a change order proposal, right? So it's something that the contractor is sending to the architect, engineer, and then basically the owner is going to get to see it last. So the following request for information has been determined by FGH Construction Company to be beyond the scope of our contract. You are hereby notified that this problem may create a suspension delay of the work, increase schedule time to complete the project, and/or cause additional cost to our work. We reserve the right to request additional time and cost for this work. This work could potentially have an adverse effect on other work being performed or that will be performed. So you are hereby notified of our intention to seek recovery of all extra costs, including but not limited to general condition expenses, if the delay affects our scheduled completion. It is our intent to minimize the effect of this change. So please issue the appropriate paperwork to complete this change. So that's our change or claim notification. So they put that in writing. Now, they put that in writing. Architect, engineer, they got to review it. They got to make sense of it, right? So they're asking for this change. Is this really something that wasn't shown in the contract documents? Are they misinterpreting it? So they have to look into it. It's going to take some time to review this change order proposal. So in the meantime, when a change order proposal or a change order is being processed, this does not mean that construction should stop. And a construction change directive can be used by the architect to keep the work going and initiate the change order. So your construction change directive example is on page 395. Now the construction change directive is basically saying that, okay, you can go ahead and you can proceed with this change. So proposed adjustments are something that the contractor is saying, well, we believe that this change is going to cost this much money. We believe the unit price now should be increased because now we're bidding it on this year, and the price that we gave, unit price, was for last year. Material went up. Whatever the case is, they put their proposed adjustments on this page. That's called forward pricing, right? So they're basically saying, we already know how much this change is going to cost us. Here it is. And we also, by the way, know how long it's going to take us to finish this change of scope work that we've identified now. So that's basically what they're putting on the construction change directive. So also, while this is happening, the contractor is going to make note that if the change order affects the contractor's schedule, an extension of the appropriate number of days will be requested to ensure that liquidated damages are not imposed for impacted period of time. We know that we have a substantial completion date. We have certain milestones that we have to meet on the contract. Now with this change, it's going to cost me, it's going to take more time now to complete the whole project. So what the contractor is going to be asking is, liquidated damages that you charge for not completing the project on time per day, those charges can be 5, 10, 15,000, whatever the amount is per day. You can't take out those charges. You can't charge me for the late completion, because now I have this change order. So the substantial completion or the milestone, the final completion dates are going to be now at a later date, and no charges, no penalties will be applied by the owner to the contractor. So payment for additional work is not allowed until the change order is completely processed. So what does a construction change directive specify? Going back to 395, so what does it specify? It specifies a price for the work or a method to determine the price. And that's going to be the opposite of basically forward pricing is going to be backward. So we're going to be back charging all of our costs. So that means that the contractor is going to pay for everybody. He's going to pay his labor, material, equipment to do all that work, and later they're going to submit a time and material force account, or as noted here on the slide, such as cost plus. So they're going to put their profit in. They're going to put their overhead profit. They're going to put their insurance rates and all that other stuff. And an example of that, so on 400, you see a daily time and material work form that they're essentially going to be using while they're doing all their work. So they're going to be recording all the labor, the material, the man hours, the equipment used, and then later create a whole package for the architect engineer to look over. And that's going to be a part of their change order now proposal, or their final change order backup that's going to be submitted to the architect engineer for their review. And construction change directive must be signed by the owner, saying that okay, you can go ahead with this work, and then we'll deal with the backup information and the pricing at a later date. So on a big project, small project, medium, doesn't matter the scale of your project, you're going to have a change order log. So change order log, just like every other log we've talked about, you're documenting all of the changes and you're tracking all the changes. So on page 401, I took those bullet points, I just put it on this slide. So the reason is it must be created a change order log to track all change proposals and change orders. So typical information you'll find is change order proposal number, the description, who initiated the change. Is it the contractor initiating the change? Excuse me, or the owner engineer initiating the change. A price associated with it, the days for extension of the contract requested, what's the status, is it approved, is it pending, rejected, what's going on, actual amount of the change order, and the date the change order was approved. And that's pretty much it on the slides. I just also want to point out here, your textbook does a great job they do it in two different ways of describing the change order process. So on page 390, it's spelled out for you. It's great. So the first step is, so page 390 again, the contractor notices a difference between actual conditions and conditions shown in construction documents. So he notices something different there, right? So the contractor notifies the architect or engineer via RFI, saying, I have this change in condition. I need explanation. What's going on here, right? So the architect must respond to the contractor regarding what needs to be done. This is normally done in contract clarification, or they just respond to that RFI. The contractor must determine if this response is considered additional work. If it is, the contractor must price the work as quickly as possible, or at least give a description of how this work is now considered extra work, right? So must price or must justify or must have, must prepare. They're going to basically prepare a proposal request. The proposal request will then be followed by a change order proposal, which is completed by the contractor with pricing and request for time extension. If the architect and engineer agree that the price is appropriate for the work and the owner agrees that the change order is necessary, the architect can then prepare that change order. So work is not authorized to proceed until the change order is signed by both parties. But as we mentioned previously, a construction change directive will let the contractor proceed with the work immediately. This change directive specifies a work price for the work, or as I mentioned, a cost plus, or a method to determine the price, such as a cost plus a fee. The owner must sign the change directive, and the change order must be a summary of several change directives. So I feel like that's a great explanation of the process. And then on page 392, you have the what if the change order doesn't get approved, or what if this gets rejected, what if this party doesn't sign it. So you can look that over on your own time, but just know that your book is basically saying that if you have something, a proposal rejected by an owner, right, for additional funds, you see here when it gets dropped, it goes, oh, the contractor disagrees with them that it has been dropped. So now the contractor is going to file a claim. So we can also say that a lot of change orders that are unresolved can become later on a claim that the contractor is gonna come after the owner, saying, you rejected my change order proposal, and and he's going to justify why he should be compensated for it. So just some important questions. I'll just let you guys know here. Your textbook on 404. So questions 1, 4, 5, and 6 is something you should definitely be able to answer. And yeah, that's pretty much that's gonna be it for change orders and claims. I'm gonna upload this to Blackboard, of course. If anyone has any questions, just shoot me an email. So yeah, guys. I hope everyone's staying safe out there, and I'll be uploading some more of these lectures in the future.